Russia deployed anti-aircraft missile systems S-300 in Crimea. A video of the Russian military convoy on the annexed peninsula has been published by local journalists. Among the other armaments, the Russian Defense Ministry is planning to station in the Crimean Peninsula are 10 coastal defense missile systems Bastion. The deployment of the air defense complex may be associated with an attempt to disrupt the Ukrainian missile tests over the Black Sea, scheduled for the 1st and 2nd of December. The S-300 and T-2500, NATO reporting name as A-23 Gladiator Giant, is a Russian anti-ballistic missile system designed to defeat short and medium-range ballistic missile, air ballistic, and cruise missiles.
This was moving day at Fort Carson, Colorado.
We have everything from tanks, Bradleys, mortar carriers, artillery pieces, engineer vehicles.
The U.S. Army's 4th Infantry Division's 3rd Armored Brigade Combat Team is preparing to ship out.
This equipment is sort of our lifeblood.
3,000 pieces of equipment.
A lot of good stuff moving out here.
That 4,000 soldiers will rely on during their upcoming 9-month deployment in Europe.
We'll be there to assure our allies and partners primarily.
Call it reassurance and deterrence. These vehicles, this equipment, will ultimately end up in 9 Central and Eastern European countries, some of them right on the doorstep of Russia. President Barack Obama announced Operation Atlantic Resolve in Poland in 2014, soon after Russia intervened in Ukraine. As part of this multi-billion-dollar effort, the 3rd Brigade Combat Team will join European soldiers in training exercises that experts say are meant to send Russian President Vladimir Putin a clear message should he think about invading one of his neighbors.
This would be an escalation that would be met with forces on the ground.
According to Arabic media, Israeli planes hit a Hezbollah weapons convoy near Damascus overnight. The IAF warplanes who reportedly fired from Lebanese airspace also hit an army compound in the Syrian capital. Israeli officials neither immediately confirmed nor denied news of the purported attacks, but other news agencies say that 4 large explosions could be heard in the Syrian capital. Hezbollah has thousands of fighters in Syria in support of the Assad regime, and in April, Prime Minister Netanyahu confirmed that Israel has carried out dozens of strikes against Hezbollah operations in Syria in order to prevent them from obtaining game-changing weapons.
Jimmy Carter demands that Obama recognize Palestine before Donald Trump takes over White House. Like most Jew haters, Jimmy Carter is terrified that Trump's campaign promise to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem is about to finally happen. We do not yet know the policy of the next administration toward Israel and Palestine, but we do know the policy of this administration. It has been President Obama's aim to support a negotiated end to the conflict based on 2 states, living side by side in peace. That prospect is now in grave doubt. I am convinced that the United States can still shape the future of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict before a change in presidents, but time is very short.
We preached patience but could not endure in the end and had to enter Syria together with the Free Syrian Army. Why did we enter? We do not have an eye on Syrian soil. The issue is to provide land to their real owners. This is to say we are there for the establishment of justice. We entered Syria to end the rule of the tyrant al-Assad who terrorizes with a state of terror.
Turkey has declared war on Syria. Does this mean that World War III is about to erupt in the Middle East? Now let me explain what this really means. It actually means war in the Middle East between NATO and Russia has been declared by NATO, but it doesn't mean that that physical war has started yet. But it's kind of like the horse's gates open and the buzzer sounds and the gates open. So he's a NATO member. There's a defense pact with all the NATO nations, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, set up for World War II, that if one nation attacks, they will all back that nation, or if one of those nations is attacked, they will back that nation. So you've got Turkey, gateway to the West, basically playing chicken with the world or holding the world hostage. He came out 2 days ago and said, if you don't accept millions more migrants and give me billions more dollars and give me more power in the EU, I'm going to just let millions of more Middle Easterners come in out of Syria. All the folks from the Middle East that basically invaded that country, part of the 5-year-old Arab Spring that our government's financed openly. So the West starts all this. Turkey's involved. They've been attacking Syria for 5 years. with aircraft and with bombers and with artillery and with tanks.
Russia says that it's surprised by comments made by the Turkish president against his Syrian counterpart Bashar al-Assad. The Kremlin says it expects an explanation from Ankara over the remark.
The situation in Aleppo is expected to top the agenda of a meeting between Russia's foreign minister and his Turkish counterpart. Sergei Lavrov arrived in Turkey's southern coastal city of Antalya, where he is set to meet Mevlut Çavuşoğlu.
Turkish foreign minister is going to talk to his Russian counterpart, and he's going to point out other policy options that are available, because the Turkish observation is that the Russian support for Bashar al-Assad is sort of not only strengthening him, but also encouraging this policy of indiscriminate killing. The other item is economic cooperation and the improvement of trade relations between the two countries. The two ministers will be discussing full access to the Russian markets by Turkey. Of course, at the moment, there still are some restrictions in place.
The UN Security Council voted to strengthen sanctions on North Korea following the all but isolated country's fifth and largest nuclear test to date. The sanctions target profits from coal, cutting down on the amount the communist nation is allowed to export by a whopping 62%. China, North Korea's main ally and trading partner, said the sanctions will do a good job of putting pressure on the nation while still offering some economic support to its people. North Korean exports of metals like silver and zinc, as well as exports of statues, are also banned under the new sanctions.
The U.S. Senate is set to vote on a bill to renew the Anti-Iran Sanctions Act for another 10 years. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell says the vote will be held this week. If the extension of the Iran Sanctions Act, known as the ISA, is passed, it would also need President Barack Obama's signature to become law. The House of Representatives has already approved the bill. The Iran Sanctions Act was first ratified in 1996 under President Bill Clinton. Iran has already warned that it would respond if the U.S. violates the nuclear agreement between Tehran and the P5+1 group of countries.
It was months in the making, and many doubted they'd be able to do it. But OPEC members have reached a landmark deal to slash oil supply. It marks the first cut since 2008 and is aimed at raising global crude prices.
Even as OPEC ministers arrived, a deal wasn't certain. But nearly all this oil cartel's members agree that prolonged low prices have left a black hole in their balance sheet. Continued division, it seems, had become just too costly.
The agreement that OPEC reduces approximately 1.2 million barrels a day to bring its ceiling to 32.5 million barrels per day, effective 1st of January 2017.
An overall OPEC quota in principle was announced 2 months ago. Since then, rivals had been arguing over how much each of them should cut. At the heart of the standoff, members Saudi Arabia and Iran. Away from the negotiating table, they are on opposite sides of proxy wars in both Yemen and Syria. Each has very different priorities. In the end, both compromised. Tehran will freeze production close to current levels. Riyadh will cut its output by 486,000 barrels. Non-OPEC producers may be on board too, something Russian President Vladimir Putin had pushed for. Though there also lies the potential catch.
Analysts around this meeting see one important caveat, and that is that the whole deal appears to hang on non-OPEC countries explaining exactly how they'll implement their commitment to cut production by 600,000 barrels a day. It's thought likely that Russia will pledge about half of that. As to who else, officials here admit that is yet to be finalised.
The decision made all the way around the world will have a trickle-down effect. OPEC, Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, has struggled to keep its grip on the market over the past few years because of increased competition. So, the group decided to slash production by more than 1 million barrels a day, an attempt to regain dominance. That decision had an almost instantaneous impact. Prices shot up by more than 9% to nearly $50 a barrel. After months of back and forth, the oil-producing nations decided to cut production on Wednesday. Experts say within hours, some gas stations saw a spike in prices.
I've seen it. It can go high. Who knows where will it stop?
The most I paid, about $320, and at that time it was pushing it. But if it goes beyond that, then it's just like I can see mass hysteria.
Well, the Saudis are in the headlines for another reason. The country is using one of its terrorist rehab centres to recruit and train jihadists. That is according to a testimony from a prisoner at Guantanamo. A former Al-Qaeda member of Saudi origin, he made the claim to the prison's parole board when explaining his refusal to enroll in Riyadh's de-radicalization program. Now, the centre is named after the Saudi crown prince and is meant to help former jihadists abandon their ruthless tendencies in a resort-style setting with pools and palm trees. Dozens of Guantanamo detainees have been enrolled in the program. They are provided with private apartments and gourmet meals at the centre. They can enjoy activities such as volleyball, table tennis, art therapy too. But often, the Guantanamo inmate has said, prisoners are actually recruited and sent to fight against Shiite groups in neighbouring Yemen and in Syria.
There is externally a strong de-radicalisation programme. But make no mistake, underneath there is a hidden radicalisation programme. It's well hidden, way stronger in magnitude, broader in financing, and in all that. When they release you, they want to make sure that they've got you to fight their jihad in their regions and in the US. They need a jihadist, but they want you to be a compliant terrorist.
The German National Security Agent's been arrested on suspicion of being an Islamist extremist. It's alleged he was plotting to attack an office of the country's intelligence agency in Cologne.
Heard earlier this year that there may have been as many as 20 operating within the German military. In fact, Thomas de Maizière, the German Interior Minister, suggested that his intelligence said that there was around 520 people at large within Germany that were capable of executing what he called unexpected and high-profile terrorist attacks. In fact, the BFR themselves had issued their own data suggesting there was as many as 40,000 Islamists at large across Germany of varying degrees. And the head of the German Internal Intelligence Service had said that there was a great risk to the country.
San Diego scientist estimates a solar megastorm could erupt and wreak havoc on Earth by the year 2020. In today's technologically dependent world, such an event could be catastrophic. It could cause major blackouts and disrupt daily life for some say up to 10 years.
These scientists say that there is a 12.5% chance that this could happen by the year 2020. Now, there are small solar eruptions that happen all the time, but a large one that could cause damage that we are talking about here happen very rarely. Now, this prediction comes from a team of scientists at the Predictive Science Center in San Diego, California. And what they did was they looked at historical patterns of this type of activity on the sun. Now, every 11 years, the sun goes through cycles of increasing and decreasing activity. Whenever it's in a period of increasing activity, it can happen where solar eruptions happen on the sun and they send particles spewing into space and sometimes toward Earth. And while the occurrence of a catastrophic event is rare, it has happened in the past. And in fact, over 150 years ago in 1859, the largest ever recorded solar storm took place. Now, during that event, telegraph stations caught on fire. The major networks had outages and magnetic fields were disturbed as well. So if this happens now, it could be even more catastrophic, as you said, because we rely on technology more and more than ever.
Good evening on this Wednesday night, and we begin with those tornado sirens ringing out across several states. Real concerns late today. We would see even more and difficult weather into the night. These twisters have been deadly. More than 24 reported tornadoes from Louisiana to Tennessee, many striking as people slept. Those who were awake sharing their stories now of racing into shelters. One of those tornadoes leveling parts of Rosalie, Alabama, including a daycare center where families had taken shelter.
Tornado warning. Tonight, a full-on tornado outbreak is hammering the south. This massive funnel cloud caught north of Miramar Beach, Florida. Water spouts crashing ashore. In Atlanta, tornado sirens sound the alarm as residents shelter in place.
You need to seek shelter immediately.
This after more than 24 reported twisters overnight.
It looks like a war zone up here.
Residents emerged from storm shelters to utter destruction.
The damage here is absolutely awful.
At least 3 killed in the town of Rosalie, Alabama. The tornado, a massive EF2, wind speeds over 110 miles an hour. This daycare in Flat Rock flattened. You can see the toys among the wreckage. 3 adults and 3 children who took shelter here seriously injured. The storm's cutting a deadly path from Mississippi.
We're really lucky that nobody was hurt here tonight. It could be the other way.
To Tennessee, where 2 more people were killed in the storm as they still deal with raging wildfires. David, this debris and the foundation is all that is left of this daycare center. Neighbors telling us this was one of the few places that they could take shelter when the storm hit. Tonight, residents here are still shell-shocked.
New this morning, a stunning show of ash, water, and vapors as a volcano erupts in central Mexico. The cloud rising more than 1,600 feet over the crater. The ash covering the nearby city of Puebla, causing the local airport to shut down for hours. Now, the volcano had been showing signs of activity since last Friday.
In Orange County, thousands of strange sea creatures are washing up on beaches.
Pictures are passed on social media and around Main Street tonight.
I think they're jellyfish.
No one seems to know what the burrowing, slow-crawling creatures are.
The beach was littered the whole way with tens, if not hundreds of thousands of these little gushy things. Walked up to lifeguards and they were trying to figure out what they were.
To get to the bottom of this, we spoke with a marine biologist at Cal State Long Beach. He told us the answer is simple. They're sea cucumbers, brought in by high water temperatures and heavy winds.
There you go, sea cucumber, yeah!
Really? In Huntington Beach? Huntington Beach, there's sea cucumbers.
Like
I've never seen that before.
If they are sea cucumbers, pictured here, they're a lot smaller than usual. A professor at UCI has his own opinion, calling the creatures pelagic tunicates, like these. No matter what they are, why they suddenly showed up en masse Monday is anyone's guess.
Earthquake in Japan, maybe that sent them over.
From afar, you're looking at that dark spot in the water and you're thinking, what is that? Is that oil? Is that some kind of debris? And it's actually sardines. And that incredible drone footage caught this just off the coast of San Diego from a Spanish scientist, Dr. Mario Labrado, and he's the one who actually captured the footage of the fish swarming on the shores. They've been doing this since 2014 due to low oxygen in the water. This started again a couple of years ago.
The president-elect is making good on a campaign promise to keep jobs from leaving the country. Dean Reynolds has more from Indianapolis.
It was one of Donald Trump's surefire applause lines.
Companies like Carrier simply fire their workers and move their operations to Mexico. Guess what? Not going to be so easy to do anymore.
And to prove that point, Trump and Vice President-elect Mike Pence will be here tomorrow when Carrier announces it will not be moving as much manpower to Mexico, saving about 1,000 American jobs.
What's your reaction to this news?
I'm still in shock, really, that Mr. Trump was able to actually put his words into actions.
T.J. Bray is a Trump-supporting union member who's worked at Carrier for 14 years.
Union workers voting Republican.
Yeah, because this guy was talking the things that everybody wanted to hear.
Just 9 months ago, Carrier shocked its workforce.
The best way to stay competitive and protect the business for long term is to move production from our facility in Indianapolis to Monterrey, Mexico.
He's probably watching right now, Robin. What would you like to say to Donald Trump about saving at least 1,000 jobs at Carrier?
I would like to tell him thank you for going out of your way and taking your holiday away from your family and working on the Carrier and employees deal and sticking to your word and going to bat for all of us at Carrier and keeping our jobs here. And I'd like to thank him and Mike Pence for doing it so quickly. I didn't expect an announcement probably for 3 or 4 weeks. And we're, 2 days from them meeting with them, and they've already made their announcement. So I'm very excited about it and would like to thank both of them personally and shake their hands hopefully tomorrow and get to meet them personally.
Well, it's a happy day out in Indiana that it's going to happen.